Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you on this nice sunny day and the ones that aren't out traveling. At least I think we're all probably in the area. Excuse me. I'm going to start for our lunch with the league today with telling you the blurb that we always say when we start, and that is we don't ever support or oppose any political party or candidate. We are a nonpartisan political organization that encourage informed and active participation in government. We do two things. One, we do inform folks about the elections, the voting process and issues. And though we're nonpartisan, we do study issues, and then the positions that we have studied, when we take a position, we do advocate for or against particular policies. So therefore, the comments that you might hear today are not necessarily those of the league. I would hope that we'll be here from noon to 1, and generally, Lety our speaker talks for the first half hour, and then we have questions and answers the second half. However, she's said that, if folks want to just interrupt, not interrupt, but, put your hand up while she's talking, that is perfectly fine for today. Please, if you don't want to do that, you can put your questions or comments in the chat, and we will be reading them from there when it comes time for the question and answer period. If you want more information about the League of Women Voters and their positions, you can go to lwvsouthbend.org. And not only does it have the positions and the information about our local league, but also you can get a link there for the state and for the national or international league. Okay, and right now, as far as league news goes, this is a kind of a quieter time before the storm, before things pick up. We have had quite a few registration events this summer, and they are quite fun. And so if lots of hands make less work for everybody. So if you get a note from Lisa Plenchner for volunteers, do it. It's fun to go someplace and register voters and inform folks how to check to see if they're registered, and those kinds of things. It's really kind of a kick to do that. And they've had several that are coming up, and we've had several in the last couple weeks. So keep that in mind, that when you hear from Lisa, see if you can do a couple hours, because it's kind of fun. Please remain muted until you put your hand up and you have something to say. Otherwise, put it in the chat. And today, I'm going to introduce Lety. And Lety, I can't pronounce Cecilia's last name. Stanton-Verduzco.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Don't ask me to say it one more time, though. And Lety is the Director of Mission Integration for the Boys and Girls Club of St. Joe County. And today, and Lety oversees the programming across the entire organization, which includes 27 sites for the upcoming school year. She previously was a unit director with the Boys and Girls Club, and is certified as a national trainer for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Prior to her recent role, she spent 3 years volunteering as a recruiter trainer for the CASA Program of St. Joe County, helping to train community volunteers to advocate on behalf of abused and neglected children. And that's where I met Lety, because I'm a CASA. She's originally from Gary, Indiana, but received her BA in creative writing from St. Mary's in 2004 and remains in the Michiana area ever since. Her wife, Cecilia. Thank you. Is a high school teacher for the South Bend Community School System. And they have one son, Samuel, who just completed his second year of college at DePaul University in Chicago. And today she's going to tell us all about the Boys and Girls Club and how that we are serving the local youth that we have. And Lety, it's all yours.
Quick question, Pam. I know, so this is, everyone that's in the room is local, is that correct?
Yeah.
Local to the Michiana. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So yeah, thank you for the introduction. I do have some slides that I'll pull up, but I told Pam I'm sort of a wing it person. I can talk about Boys and Girls Club all day long. It's been, honestly, I love the work that we do. It's good work. It's hard work. It's necessary work. I have been with the organization since 2008. And I started off as a unit director, and for about 8.5 of those years, 9 years, I was at the Harrison Elementary School site on the city's west side. From there, I became a director of operations for a short amount of time, and we were at a sort of at a crossing point with our organization, and decided at the time that I needed a break and a new adventure and challenge, and that's where I ended up at the CASA department for about 3.5 years, and have been back with the organization going on 2 years now. So I do want to start with sort of the mission of the Boys and Girls Club, which is, and as Pam mentioned, my title is Director of Mission Integration, and I oversee programming. But the reason I like mission in my title as opposed to programming director, programming coordinator, is part of my role is to ensure that in everything that we do in our organization, that the heart of it, the mission is at the heart of it, regardless of what that programming looks like, regardless of the grants, regardless of the funding, regardless of the school, regardless of the location, regardless of whatever is going on, are we fulfilling the mission of our organization? And the mission of the Boys and Girls Club is to inspire and enable all young people, especially those who need us most, to realize their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible citizens. And there has been a lot of changes, a lot of growth internally in our organization. And I think it's fair to say, even just across all different avenues. I mean, even post-COVID, right? We're living in a very different world. So as we grow as an organization and how we serve our youth, we redefine, or we're looking at that, those who need us most, right? What does that mean? It's no longer, we think of just like disadvantaged youth because of socioeconomic status. We're looking at things like academics. And one really big thing right now, and I'm going to talk about sort of the initiatives and things that we're doing, because I'm very proud of what we're doing in this area, is around the area of mental health, because that there are, that doesn't know boundaries, that doesn't know districts, and that doesn't know area codes. Mental health is a big challenge in our community, and even more so accessing resources for those mental health challenges, and we're seeing across all avenues. So that's sort of my little spiel at the beginning. I am going to get into some numbers here. As Pam mentioned, 27 sites that we're going to be opening up. We've had tremendous growth in the last 2 years, and a lot of it has to do post-COVID and what we're seeing. 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, Boys and Girls Club received a grant through funding HB 1008, which had to do with learning loss, especially coming out of COVID, that we were seeing across the state, across all schools, across all districts. And not only did we receive funding for that, we were one of the largest recipients of that funding. We went from having approximately 11 sites to 21 in a 2-month period.
Wow.
And so when you think of growth, I mean, literally the number of students that we're serving, the number of staff, our whole structure had to change in order to be able to ensure that we can reach those kids that we're working with. And I think in that first year, across those 21 sites, and including our summer programming, we served at some point up to 3,000 kids in St. Joseph County. And that is the most that we've ever served in a year. And we're continuing to grow because we're not in every school right now. We're not in every area of where we can be. And not only that, we're actually growing beyond St. Joe County. And I will talk about that as well. We actually this past year picked up White County. And if you're not familiar with that, Monticello, Indiana, there's more than corn in Indiana, Indiana Beach. We actually took their Boys and Girls Club under our umbrella to ensure that that organization, that location there could continue to thrive with their limited resources, whereas we had an abundance of resources and felt like we could really help them so that that community continue to serve their youth. I did, and if I find it, I might send it to you, Pam, so you can share it with them. Back in October of last year, I did something called the Studebaker Talks in Town. And I kind of did my own personal story on how I came to work with youth and sort of my call to action, not as a representative of my organization, but as me as a person on how we need to invest in our community and in our youth. And during that, I was looking at, I think, our census numbers and realized that in St. Joseph County, between the ages of 5 and 18, so we're thinking school-aged youth, there are over 40,000 in St. Joseph County. And that is a big number. And when I say that we're serving 3,000, that to me sounds a lot until you get that 48,000 or 45,000, whatever that was. And I know that those kids are in other programs, they're involved in school, they have, they're going home to support and resources, but there's just you can turn on the news right now and know that we have gaps in our services and gaps in the things that we have for our youth to do to keep them out of trouble. They don't have to look far into the news cycle to see that that is a challenge that we have. So at the Boys and Girls Club, we are trying to figure out ways, how can we best meet the needs of the community proactively, early, so that as our mission statement says, we are sending these kids out as productive, caring, responsible citizens. And one of the ways that we also think that has changed in the last even decade is, right, we've had a lot of focus on the children that come through our program, but we realize, I mean, they walk out of our doors at 6 p.m. and we can't control, right, the circumstances they're going home to. So how do we extend our resources and our services to our families as well? So I'm going to pull up the slide and share it here in a second. Yeah, let me find it. All right. There we go. All right. Is that coming up, Pam? Can you see that? Yeah, okay. All right. So talking about our growth and our numbers, I mentioned the 27 sites, and you see the five was like pre-COVID, essentially right around COVID, and then we expanded. We were one of the organizations that stayed open during COVID to try to help meet the needs of the community. Schools were shut down, but they're still doing e-learning. We opened up locations for those kids to go during the day, for those parents who still had to work. And they did their e-learning from our locations. They were bringing their Chromebooks. We had whiteboards with all the different schedules that the kids had to make sure that they're not missing their classes and they're not missing their work. And then it was, and as I mentioned, beyond COVID, when we received that amazing grant and funding, which we refer to as our Strive programming, and we're able to open up additional sites to make it 21. Of those 21 locations, 20 of them are located inside schools. And then we had our standalone flagship site, the OC Carmichael, which stands over at the corner of Sample and Fellows. We are in partnership currently with 6 different school districts, and I'll get to those here in a bit. Our workforce went from approximately 50 to 304. Now, granted, that did not happen overnight. That was an ongoing process. And I don't know if any of you have ever had to hire people before, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It is a lot of making sure that we can appropriately prepare and train and do all of that. And I'm going to be, again, we had our hiccups along the way. We've definitely learned we're in a better position now than we've ever been. Our retention rate went from, I don't even know, we weren't even tracking it before. I don't think we had the time to about 90% this past year. And so it's where we're constantly working on ways to make sure that our programming is solid and staffed and the kids have what they need. And then this is the number here from the previous year. We served 3,169 kids throughout the year. That includes our summer programming, that includes our school year programming. And that's how many kids walk through our doors in the past year. And even with the numbers that we serve, even with the growth that we had this past school year, I ended the end of the school year in May with 627 kids still on a wait list. And that is just a wait list of kids from sites we already have. That doesn't include schools that we were not in, because we know that if we were in those schools that we would have kids signed up for the program. And I didn't have a single location this past year that did not have a wait list. The demand and the need was that high. And one other thing I do want to point out, I don't think I have it on another slide here, is that we offer our school year programming as well as our summer programming at no cost to our families. So in our summer programming, we're actually, next week is our last week of a 5-week for some school corps, 6 weeks for others, depending on when they started their summer school, 4 days a week, 8:30 to 5:30. Breakfast and lunch provided, field trips at no cost, enrollment, registration at no cost to our families. We give, because our staff work 10-hour days, we don't run programming on Friday, so they have a nice 3-day. I also don't know if you've ever worked with children, but they can be a little tiring. So we give our staff those 3-day weekends to kind of recover and then come back for them that following Monday. And our wait list number, I think I updated this yesterday, for the summer programming was about 450 kids. So the need is there in our community. And the more we continue to add, the more kids we can serve, but we know that that need is still very high. Here are some, you can kind of see the map here of where our locations are. Here are the school corporations and organizations we are currently partnered with. We're partnered with the School City of Mishawaka. We are in every single elementary school in Mishawaka, and we are in John Young, which is the one middle school in Mishawaka. We are partnered with South Bend Community School Corporation. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 South Bend School Corporation, and then we have 1, 2, 3 empowerment zones. So we kind of have those separated on their locations as well. We are down in John Glenn, so North Liberty and Walkerton. We have a location in each of those. Career and Success Academy, we are located in their schools as well. Some of the newly open sites come in. We have a teen center that will be opening hopefully by September. And then of course our OC Carmichael Junior Youth Center, and they will be successfully running school during the day in that building. But we are continuing to run our after school programming in that building, and will continue to serve South Bend school kids who have traditionally been busing there because their school does not have a location. And then of course you can see the Boys and Girls Club of White County. What I don't have on this list right now is we will be opening a location at Paramount School, which is opening up next month in a few weeks here. And we are opening up a location down in Caston County. And which I think is that Rochester, somewhere around there. And this is sort of when I say we're expanding beyond. There are many counties in Indiana that either don't have a Boys and Girls Club, and not just doesn't have a Boys and Girls Club, but has no out-of-school programming. There's no tutoring after school, even if it's provided through the school, even if they don't have a Y that has programming. Maybe you might have some churches, but again, the kids have to get there, right? So we are looking at those areas that are near us that we can provide support and start off opening a location there, typically in like a school location where it's a little bit easier. We don't have to worry about building a new building or anything like that. And then being able to provide support, build up buy-in in that community, and potentially expand. so that we ensure that all areas of Indiana are serving kids in those communities. If there is a building that has kids in it, we want to be there. Ultimately, is we want to serve the kids. We want to serve as many youth as possible. We're not trying to push anybody out if they already have an existing, organization there, but we know that there are so many schools that outside of maybe a club here, or maybe like 1 day here, 2 day here, that don't have this. And so we have parents trying to figure out how to get their kids home. We have kids at home that are unattended, or maybe they're with an older, 12-year-old sibling who are watching 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. And so we are trying to provide that safe space for them, but also we can continue to build on literacy and math and activities, and provide these experiences and safe adults for the youth, to fulfill our mission. And again, knowing that if we prepare them in advance, then they're just going to be better citizens for our community ultimately. And whether that their community right now is their school or their home or their neighborhood, that we're trying to serve as many kids as possible. The emotional well-being program is what I'm most excited about, actually, but I want to go to these numbers on the right. So we do have a data coordinator on staff, especially with the big undertaking that we were doing. Wanted to make sure what we're doing is working, right? We're doing a lot of things. The state entrusted us with a lot of funding, and we want to be able to show that what we're doing is working, and if we need to make an adjustment. And so these are from the first year of our grant. I don't think we're working on our second year numbers, but 64.2% of club kids gained 1 or more grade levels in literacy. And just to give you guys an idea, most kids post-COVID, regardless of how they were doing before COVID, most kids were below grade level. So many gained a grade level, and we're excited about that. But then we have, so that's literacy, 68.9% of club kids gained 1 or more grade levels in math. And then 20% of our club kids gained 2 or more grade levels in both literacy and math. So we know that what we're doing is working, having some emphasis on literacy and math, and embedding that in our programming is beneficial. And we're trying to do it in ways that doesn't make it feel like kids are just continuing a school day. So the activities are fun, they're engaging. We rely on volunteers to come in and read to kids and do activities with the kids. We're getting away from just paper and pencil. We know that kids are learning differently now than they ever have. But how can we continue to support them and continue their learning after school and still make it fun? So this past year, they had literacy twice a week, math twice a week. We also included social emotional learning, entrepreneurship, career readiness, and you can go down to kindergarten 5-year-olds and they don't know that's what they're doing. But whether it's teaching them how to speak in ways to ask for what they need and to come up with ideas, and giving them things and to create products. And we participated in Rise Fest this past year, and many of our clubs, kids had come up with their own little projects and products that they sold and presented on. And it's really just trying to teach these kids these skills early, so that they start thinking about what it is they want to do when they get older. And we're not waiting until high school. We're not waiting until 9th, 10th grade to really get kids talking about what it is that they want to do. The emotional well-being program. So in August of last year, we hired Dr. Erica Kelsey, who is a clinical child psychologist. We're the only Boys and Girls Club as of right now in the country who has a clinical child psychologist on staff. And she has been building this emotional well-being program that has already been doing an amazing job. And we've been able to build up. We have 2 therapists on staff. We are now somewhere where bachelor's levels and master's level social work interns, as well as we're now working with Notre Dame and their PhD programs for their psychologists as well, to be able to intern with our kids and with our organization. And we are, I could do a whole presentation on this alone, but ultimately we are trying to early intervention, essentially, before we start seeing severe emotional and mental health challenges in kids, because by the time, because there's such a wait list, because there's such a limited access to resources, by the time a child or a family member is going to those services, the needs are so severe, and if they can't get in immediately, that's impacting them. And we're seeing wait lists 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, even to get in and see somebody. So many of the things that we can do early intervention, we're able to do on site at no cost to the family, because we have a clinical psychologist who's able to do assessments. There is no wait list for us. There's no wait list for us. We have small groups with kids. We have individual therapy with kids. We are able to talk to parents about resources available to them, provide them, have conversations with them. We're able to do it on site. So, because we do know that for some families, there's a stigma about having to go see somebody, right? We understand that. But there's sort of this like trust. Okay, my kid's already at the program, your Boys and Girls Club, conversations are there. We're not sending them somewhere else to talk to somebody who doesn't know them or doesn't know their kid. And just about everything that we offer for our kids, we also offer for our staff. Our staff, whether they're part-time or full-time, has access to our therapists and our counselors, and can self-refer. And if they don't feel comfortable because, you know, this person works for club and they're dealing with whatever, we can refer out to another partner at no cost to our staff, whether or not they have insurance. And what we're seeing, right, we know that mental health is a big issue and crisis right now, but many of our staff that work for us are between the ages of 17 and 20. They are also young. They have many of the same, they're coming from the same communities and challenges that many of our kids are. Because of their age, they were also greatly impacted by COVID and the shutdown and not being able to go to school or all of those different things. And so we want to make sure that they have the support and resources they need if they're going to be providing services and programming for the kids that we serve. There is actually right now, from noon to 1 at our office, one of our our therapists is once a month beginning to do workshops that are free to our staff. They're not mandatory, it's drop in, but they're all based on self-care, best practices on how to, I can't even remember what the title of today's was, but just ways with dealing and coping with stress and giving them tools and techniques. And it's completely open and optional to them. And we've also been doing some of these workshops for our teens at our programs as well, because they also need to learn coping mechanisms, how to communicate, how to understand their feelings, how to process emotions and deal with their own stress and challenges that they have as well. Anytime we go to a conference right now, Dr. Kelsey is the star of the show. As soon as people find out what we're doing, we're continuing to grow in that area. Again, it's something I'm very excited about, not only because it's just wonderful and unique, but we're beginning to see the turnaround. We are getting such positive feedback from our staff for the support. We're in a better place to not throw a kid out of the program because of the behaviors and the issues that maybe our 17, 18-year-old staff are not able to know how to manage, but our team is able to come in and help provide those support and resources so that we can serve the family, give them what they need, and keep them in our program. Because we know that if they go out and try to get those services themselves, regardless on if they have insurance, they could be waiting 4 months, they could be waiting 5 months. And some of our families, they just don't have that time. They just don't have that time to wait. So, all right, I'll stop talking about that for now, and I'll move on. But again, that's just something I'm as an organization, I think we're very proud of. And again, we're able to provide resources for the families, give them feedback, give them tools, give them suggestions, and include them in the process of the work that we're doing with their kids, so that it doesn't just stop at our doors, and that hopefully those things are carrying over when those kids get home, which just for consistency and to make sure kids feel supported regardless of where they're at. And I'm just not noticing that they're, I'm just looking at questions. What are the lower and higher age limit for kiddos to be in your program? So if we are in a school site, the age limit is essentially whatever grades are served there, then that's what we serve there. So we have a location at Nooner, which is K through 5. So we serve K through 5 students at Nooner. We are at Career Academy, which is 6th grade and up. So those are the ages and grades that we serve there. Our OC location has traditionally, like we've taken all the way up to teens, we're going to have a teen center. And so the teens will be going to that location. In the summer, our locations are a little bit different. We do partner with school corporations and their summer school programs. So some of our sites are limited on what members can go there, but we have what we call community locations, where as long as they're between entering their kindergarten going to 1st grade, so they've already had a year of school, up until age 18, they can enroll in some of our community sites. So typically if they're school age, in the summer, we have multiple sites they can go to during the school year. It's whatever school that they're at, those are the grades and ages that we accept. How do you manage children whose first language is not English? The majority of the kids that we do have that fall in that category are tend to be Spanish speakers, not all of them. We do have a number of staff that are bilingual. We do try to help and provide services where we can, being very mindful of staff placement and as well. It has not, I can tell you though, it has not been a huge challenge for us because especially the kids that are younger, because they pick up pretty fast. The bigger challenge, I think, tends to be when we have to communicate with parents. But again, we have the biggest issue the challenge has been Spanish speaking, but we do have a number of our staff that are Spanish speakers. But as those challenges come up or those questions come up, we do try to address those when we can. But again, it has not been a huge challenge for us thus far. All right. I will go back to my next slide here. There we go. So when we talk about organization, I've talked a lot about growth, and I think I've talked a little bit about impact and then, sustainability, because we are currently running on a number of different types of funding. That funding that I mentioned earlier has been extended. We are working on diversifying our funding and all that because we want to make sure that we're able to maintain. This is a lot of sites. This is a lot of staff. And we want to continue to grow. And we know, and as everyone knows, that you can't rely on some funding to always be there. So it is something we are being very intentional about. I mean, as far as impact goes too, I mentioned some of those numbers, and grants and reports love numbers. Right? They want to know, what is the return on investment? What is that? Impact for me is like much deeper than that. And I always tell this story because, I mean, I'm not asking anyone here for money today. I'm not asking anyone to invest in this in that way, but I think it's important to show like what is the value of what we do outside of numbers. Because I have been with the organization since 2008, I have literally been able to see my kids grow up. I probably have, in those 300 staff that we mentioned, I probably have about 15 to 20 kids who were in my program at Harrison who now work for us. Whether they're a YDP, whether they're a team lead, or whether they're a club director. I've been to baby showers, I've been to graduations, I've held the children of kids who were once in my program. I still have parents of those kids call me like, hey, can you talk to my kid? Because they'll listen to you. And it's about, it's not just about the programming, it's about building relationships, right? One of the benefits that we have in our out of school programming, right? Teachers are wonderful and amazing, and I am married to one. But typically you are in a classroom and the next year you go to a different classroom, right? And then you go to a different classroom and you don't have that continuity between that adult. If a kid starts our program in kindergarten at Harrison Elementary School, they don't move, they're going to end our program in that school in 5th grade. And they're going to have seen a lot of staff in those 5 years. We're able to build relationships with these kids. We're able to build relationships with these parents, because parents have to come to the door to get their kids. They're not going home on the bus. They're not going home. We have a handful of walkers. And so we're able to constantly have that connection with them to be able to talk to them about services, about concerns with the child, about getting that buy-in, because, hey, I got to talk to you about your kid, but I've been working with your kid for 3 years. You know, I care about your kid. And so we're seeing great success in getting parents on board with a lot of the things we're doing because of that. And so when I think of impact, we've got a data guy for the numbers, okay? But when I see impact, I'm looking directly in the eyes of people, to the fourth grader who my first year was the, club vice president. And we had nominations that year because it was an election year, and I was going to teach these kids about the process. And she is now in the Air Force and is stationed overseas. And that to me is just a really amazing and wonderful thing that I get to see, because I've been with this program long enough that, yeah, I can show you these numbers all day long, but I could also show you pictures of each one of my kids and tell you what they're doing right now. So I mentioned the teen center that's going to be opening up. I don't know if many of you, if you're familiar in the area with where Temple Bethel was, off of downtown Lafayette. That building I know is being turned into the Portage School of Leaders, which is part of the Career Success Schools. A footprint in that building, which will be the same building but separated, is going to be our teen center. One thing that we realized in teens are different now than they were 10 years ago. Part of that is many of them are like, we have a harder time recruiting teens for our programs because they're working. They want to work. They need to work. And they also don't want to be in the same building with their 5 or 6-year-old sibling. And, when you think of, we call it the Boys and Girls Club, and like, what 17-year-old wants to hang out at the Boys and Girls Club? So we're changing the language, calling it the club. This is not what it is now. These are the pictures right here is basically what it's going to look like. And the idea is like, how do we make this space appealing to our youth, give them a safe place to be, and what is it that they want? Kids just want to hang out and feel safe. So give them a place to hang out and feel safe. And then we bring in all these other things. Our goal is to actually have a social worker that's here and available for these kids. Not necessarily like we're going to sign everybody up, but like we have somebody there who's going to be able to like talk to the kids and figure out maybe what challenges they are, just being available to them without, again, having to put on that pressure of like enrolling them into something, signing them up to something, parents having to get them somewhere. We're going to load this place up with snacks. We're going to have TVs, game systems, and it will be supervised by trained and responsible adults. But we want it to be a cool place for kids to go where we can continue to serve the mission, but also give them somewhere safe to be, because kids do want stuff to do. And I'm talking about teens, but teens are kids to me. Kids do want stuff to do. And we want to make sure we can get that for them. And I do realize like I've passed, I think like my 30 minutes. So I do want to get to questions if you guys have questions. I've talked a lot about like the initiatives coming up, things that we're currently doing. But again, I could talk about club all day long. I absolutely could. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there and just open that up to anybody.
Lety, I had a question that had to do with what is the criteria to get into? You said people are on a waiting list, and I'm sure that has to do with the number of employees and volunteers you have, but what is the criteria to get into the Boys and Girls Club?
So ultimately, the program is open to anybody who wants to be in it until we reach capacity. Now, with that said, because we believe that the continuity and the continuation is important to make sure that like year after year, we're able to serve these kids and build upon what we've done. Like we're getting ready to open up registration for the upcoming fall, for example. First priority is given to those who were in the program last year. Okay. Second priority is given to those who were in our summer program, but maybe not in the program last year. And then our wait list. And then if there's spots left, then we open it up to the rest.
So there's no financial criteria. There's no criteria as far as who is eligible to be in, just anybody.
Anybody, because
Okay.
what we're realizing is that all of, again, and I feel like this is something that has been a much bigger, I mean, I'm going to argue that every single child has a need for an important positive role model in their life. And again, I think the idea of who needs us most is a little bit more broad than it was in the past, because when we're now throwing into the issues of mental health, of academic performance post-COVID, as well as like socioeconomic and all of that, then all of our kids need it. We do, with that wait list, we typically have sort of like a buffer in each location, because we understand that we're going to have special circumstances where I need to get a kid in that program. So for example, like at our OC Carmichael location, because of its location, and it makes the most sense, we reserve spots specifically year round to make sure that we have space for kids that are coming from the YWCA, which shares the parking lot with us, as well as for the Center for the Homeless, which is also around the corner. So we do make sure that I don't think we've ever gotten to a point where we say like, we can't serve you. We try to make that buffer so that we can take those kids in. Same thing goes with Hope Rescue in St. Margaret's House, where we are trying to make sure. And then I might get a phone call from a school social worker and says, hey, here's the situation. We really need this. And then we have a conversation, make sure, one, we can meet the needs of the child, depending on what those needs are, or any resources that we can provide. But we will squeeze kids in, but I plan for that in advance to make sure that we can manage that. So
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Oh, come on, somebody's got a question. And if they don't, you can just.
I'll say, I think Amy came off mute. So I think.
Yeah, I came off mute. I was just gonna say, I just got an invite from somebody else at your staff, and now I can't remember her name. It's Brenna or something with a B. And she just invited all the county council members to come tour. So we'll all be, I don't know about everybody else. I plan on coming, and I'm sure, I know Randy Fig told me he's gonna come. So it'll be nice to actually see what you do close up.
So, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did want to bring that up in sort of ways, like we're constantly looking for time, treasure, and talent, right? Because we know that not everyone can give the same way, right? So whether that is, and I see a question in there, how do adults volunteer to tutor in your program? We do have a volunteer coordinator and online, and I'll put the website in there in a little bit. There is a volunteer interest form, and that kind of gives us a little bit of idea about availability, location, and things like that. And somebody will reach back out to you for that. As far as the tour that you were mentioning, Amy, we actually just had one on Tuesday of this week. And it was our first time doing a summer one, but during the school year, we do these every other month. We call them community impact tours. And part of that is a way for us to get folks into our locations, to hear about what we're doing, to physically see what we're doing, not just like me talking to you about it, and really get to meet the kids, meet the staff, see what we're currently doing, or whether it's the construction, whether it's the new buildings, whether it's the new programs, and to hear from our leadership team on the bus, off the bus, at the locations, from the people who actually are running the club sites, and also like just meeting the kids, because kids will be brutally honest, whether we want them to or not, and and as Amy said, and we encourage folks to do that, and I would encourage you, if that's something that you're interested in, let Pam know, and she can give me the contact information, and we try to bring everyone on, whether it's business owners, whether it's from the universities, whether it is local elected representatives, because we serve your community, right? And so how are ways that we can collaborate, that we can help each other? What are the needs? And if we're not meeting them, what are the gaps and how we can fill them? And if that's something you can help us with, or maybe you have an idea that we just haven't thought of. And like we had the trip on Tuesday, and we had somebody who was from a bank actually who came on that and immediately sent us an email like, that was great, thank you so much. We would like to offer financial literacy for your teens. And that's that's great. Like, we want our kids to be thinking about those things in advance, but we're not the experts in that. So finding ways to get the community engaged, involved, because the kids we serve are the kids you serve, are the kids that are in your neighborhoods, in the schools, on your block. They're the ones you're reading about in the paper and on the news. And so how can we reach them? How can we all help each other to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our community? Do you have opportunities for kids to learn music skills or practice them in your sites? Do you partner with the Music Village with lessons? We currently do not partner with the Music Village. I know the Elkhart Boys and Girls Clubs do, and it is, and again, these are the things that we, like, whether it's somebody making an introduction or figuring out how we can do that. We're constantly, like, we partner with like the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. We partner with Robinson Center, Riverbend Math, Notre Dame lacrosse teams. We get the boys on their off season and the girls on theirs, and they come in and volunteer once a week, and then we send the kids to watch them play. So we have, we call them community partners, where we have businesses and organizations who will adopt a site. And this goes to the tutoring thing. We take individual tutors as well as organizations. I will do a shout out to Holiday Properties. They have adopted a site, and what that means is once a week they send 2 to 4 people, and it rotates, right? So it's not the same people. So, you know, we know that that can take a toll on an organization or a business, and they rotate people to go and read to the kids. And then they host a holiday party, or they host the end of year party. And these kids have been seeing them come back year to year. So there's a built up relationship there. And then they have ownership in that site, like that's their site. So there's different opportunities in that way to do that. And that is a help to us, because we try to keep our ratios low. We try to go for the state, I think required is like 1 to 25. We are typically between 1 and 7 and 1 and 10 adult to student. And that's intentional, right? We want to make sure that they have the attention, they have an adult that is, you know, they're just not a name or a number to them. Oftentimes our staff know their names, they know the family's names, they know what their cat's name is and what their little brother's name is, and that they spit up on them that morning. And that's what we're trying to do, is not just all these programs, but like building the relationship. If anyone's ever worked in education, it doesn't matter how good your curriculum is if you don't know how to deliver it. So the person in the room matters. And so that's what we're trying to continue to grow and build on. And yeah, do you ever collaborate with Elkhart clubs? Not directly. All of our organizations are kind of independent of each other, but we have a good relationship with them. I know quite a few people. We end up at the same conferences together. Our CEOs tend to chat as we're navigating some of the bigger things. All of the CEOs in Indiana are part of like the Indiana Alliance. So like when we're going to our local legislators, they're going to them as a group, right? So that we're going collectively to ask for the help and the needs of what our organization is, because we want to make sure we're a united front when we do that. So do we collaborate directly with them, other than maybe we play in the same sports league back and forth, and we just challenged their staff to a dodgeball tournament with our staff. But outside of that, you know, we just have a really good working relationship, I would say, with them.
Okay. 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 You have, where are we? We are at 10 minutes. And you said if no one has any more questions right at this moment, people will have questions right at the last minute. But did you say you had something to say about your future, about what is coming up?
So like I said, well, I mentioned a couple sites we have opening up. As far as we're continuing to grow and we're continuing to find ways to collaborate with the community. We're open to like things that we haven't thought about, right? Like what are partnerships that can complement what we're doing, or really fulfill a need? Like we already have the kids, right? We already have the kids, and they're already in our buildings. You know, are there groups or organizations who can come to us and meet a need that we're not able to meet yet? And just even, like I said, time, treasure, and talent. So we ask for all of those things. If you aren't able to give financially, do you have the time to volunteer? Or do you have the time to introduce us to somebody who might be able to help us out? The talent, do you, are you somebody who's a musician who's, I mean, we have folks who are like retired or just want to do something outside of their work. And we've got kids learning how to play chess because of volunteers. We have kids, we had somebody this summer who was doing construction club and teaching kids how to like build things. Like how cool is that? But like our staff isn't trained for that, but this is somebody who is trained for that. So like what talent do you have that you can come teach a skill to the kids that we serve? So we're giving them opportunities that we may not be able to provide right now. But again, we have the kids already in our doors. How can we all serve them together?
Can I say one other thing? I just wanted to say, it's great that you've been there a long time. How long did you say you've been there?
So I started in 2008. For 3 years, from 2018 to about 2021, I worked for the CASA program as the recruiter and trainer for over at the JJC. But I
Well, I mean,
never,
it shows that you're dedicated if you've been around that long. So it's great.
I love what I do. But again, I tell you, it's hard work. Like I've had like 2 15-hour days this week. But that part of that's I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks. But what we do matters. And again, I've been able to individually see that impact because I've been here so long. I've been able to see my kids grow up. And so I know that the work that we do works. Oh, thank you, Linda.
Yeah. I have a question. When you're in the schools, do you have someone from one of your employees or volunteers or something in the school, or is it a school staff person that kind of is in charge of the program in the schools?
So the staff is our staff. So every site has a club director. It's a part-time club director, but their day typically starts at noon. So there is overlap with them in the school building before the programming starts. And our YDPs or youth development professionals, they tend to start closer to 2 o'clock. If I can get all the school corporations to get on the same calendar and the same start time, that would be wonderful. They don't. So our school by school, it may vary a little bit. But yeah, so club directors do have some overlap. So they're in the building, and part of that is to make sure that they build those relationships with administrators. And with that, though, some of our staff do work in the schools. There's a lot of paraprofessionals, for example, whose workday ends when the school day ends. We like to hire them because they already know the school, they already know the kids. And many of them are sometimes looking for another position or something else to supplement their income. And if they are willing to spend a few more hours working with those kids, then there's a few of our school sites where maybe half of our staff are also school staff during the day, which that opens up doors for us. One of our, some of that wait list is staffing, some of it is space. And some of that is out of our control, right? A school is not going to ask the teacher to leave their classroom early, nor do we expect them to so that we can have their classroom. They're contracted to a certain point. We want to respect that. So we are at the mercy of the school on what spaces they have available to us. And so we base our numbers on those locations, often on what space is available. I can fit 100 kids in a cafeteria, but that is not going to be productive to the work that we want to do. So it's going school by school, site by site, and seeing what's available to us, and then we base our numbers off of that.
Lety, you mentioned that you had something of your own that you said you'd give to me and I could give to people, but is there a link or something that you could put in chat for that? Because I don't know whether I'll know all these people when we get gone.
Okay, let me see if I can find this quickly. So last year in October, I did something called the Studebaker Talks, which is sort of a TED Talk style. But the focus is South Bend in the South Bend community. And so my talk had to do with really youth in the community, being involved, the importance of that, but it also tells my own individual story about how I came to work with youth and why this work is so important to me. And so it's about 15 minutes. And it gives kind of my own call to action. If I can find this. I just had this link not too long ago. Oh, here we go. And I will drop it in the chat. So it's, I mean, if you,
Thank you.
oh, there we go. If it's something that you're interested in, I'm not, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't watch it. But I think it really gets a little bit more into the heart of why I do what I do and why I feel it's valuable that our community is engaged in investing in youth. And again, that's time, treasure, and talent. Whatever everyone has, everyone can give in some way, right? Everyone can give time, whether that's even the kids on your block, the kids in your house. Like how can we serve youth to really set them up for success? And that's my personal mission.
All right. Thank you, Lety. And I see that it's in the chat if anybody is interested to copy that out. If there aren't any more questions, I want to thank you very much. I'm always amazed, excuse me, to learn so much about the programs that we have on here and to know all that you do. I've always known there's a Boys and Girls Club, but that's all I've known. To know that you take care of so many children and have so many programs is just amazing.
And I'm going to go ahead and throw in the chat too my email address if anybody has any follow-ups, questions, if you want to get into the sites before the bus tour or learn more about that, as well as our website. So if you are interested in volunteering, you can find our volunteer tab there to kind of submit your interest in that. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the chat. You guys are all welcome to have that as well. I will warn you though, starting Sunday, I am out of the country for 2 weeks. So if there's a delay in response, that is, I will be enjoying being unplugged.
Okay. Lety, thank you so very much for your time and for all the information that you gave us and for encouraging us to get involved.
I thank you guys all for inviting me to this. This was wonderful. I appreciate the engagement, the questions. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions that may arise after this, or if you guys have any ideas of ways we can continue to partner.
And have a wonderful vacation.
Thank you. I will.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
And for
everybody.
the rest of you, enjoy the day. Come back next month. On the second Friday, we will have talk about a young man, and I've forgotten his name, who rode his bike around South Bend County, St. Joe County, and has collected wonderful stories about people and places that we don't know much about. It'll be interesting. So with that, goodbye, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Thanks, Lety.